Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning to you. It is the last show of this week, and I'll be taking Memorial Day off just because everybody else does, so why not me? It brings up a question. I don't know where I saw it posed, but it's one that I think has troubled a lot of people for a long time now, and that is flying the flag. Used to be, in less troubled times, a lot of Americans, I'm trying to remember if my family did. There was a little period when I was growing up where we did have a flag we flew on occasion, like on the 4th of July, maybe Memorial Day. I don't know. But then we didn't necessarily keep it up. I don't know whose idea it was. I had nothing to do with it. So these days, when you see a flag flying on someone's home, the American flag, what do you think? And I'm afraid that, generally speaking, what we think now is that's a Republican, or that's a Trumper. That's a in-your-face USA, USA. And it's maddening that. I remember a friend years ago. I think this goes back decades, obviously. So the Republicans have sort of claimed the flag long before Donald Trump. And she was very annoyed at these, I guess at the time it was flag pins were being worn, and it was an indicator. It was telling people what your politics were. And she had purchased a flag pin, I believe, and was wearing it because she wanted to say they don't own the flag. That belongs to all of us. But the problem with her protest is, of course, that by wearing the flag pin, everyone she encountered who noted it might have been surprised. Why, I didn't know she. There would be this assumption. And I think the only way to take the flag back is to fly it. Obviously, she was right. But it would have to be done, by people who normally don't. That'd be people who vote for Democrats. All this sort of came up because I was walking in my neighborhood yesterday, and I saw that one of the houses that had first put up a Ukrainian flag had now put up the Stars and Stripes as well. And I thought, oh, well, so that's for Memorial Day. And, that flying both can create a cognitive dissonance in some people's heads. Like, wait, because I thought if you put up a Ukrainian flag, you'd sort of be putting yourself against Trump. On the other hand, if you're putting in you know what I mean? And this, I don't know, this signaling, this, um, how everything seems so fraught. And in a time of such division, I don't know. And I, would hope to see a lot more American flags on Memorial Day, just to show that this is all of this is our country, and that flag is a symbol of it. And I don't know about you, but I really care about this country. And I think it's in terrible, terrible danger. And it would seem a good time to fly that flag. Milton writes, since 2016, so that's when Trump first was elected, since 2016, whenever we fly our American flag on my girlfriend's house, I feel the need to fly another, like the rainbow flag or Black Lives Matter or UN, Canada, Ukraine, whatever, as a disclaimer. There you go. Oh, yeah. I I mean, I get it, but to, this is because they absconded with it, and we let them. Our side is never ready to fight. Um, Never, it seems. Uh, they renamed our party. They even demonized what I had always considered myself politically a liberal. And liberals' reaction, I think, was to rename themselves progressives, which I never did. Um, because I'll be damned if someone's going to take my, descriptor away from me. I, I mean, we're so weak. I'm angry about it. Just sit by and let them take our stuff that belongs to us all and claim it as their own and give it meaning that it doesn't have. When I look at the way they use the flag, it is aggressive. That's not how I would use the flag. I would use it with love. I put on it all of the positives I feel about this country, its promise. And they're into something else. I don't know what it is, but it ain't welcoming, and it is aggressive. Mary writes, I fly a US flag daily, and I have a small Ukrainian garden flag placed in the front yard landscaping. In this very liberal suburb just west of Cleveland, there are a lot of American flags displayed. That's good. That's good to hear, Mary. That's really good to hear. I, so, Memorial Day. Yeah. Okay. Um, I don't have an American. I have a facsimile of an American flag. It's like an artistic rendition of an American flag, but it's not the real flag. So I don't know. Okay, enough. Um, so their big beautiful bill passed early this morning um, by one vote. if our, a good old Democratic congressman died yesterday. Connolly is a good guy. Um, and if he hadn't been there, maybe it would still be a tie and they'd, not have been able to do it, but who knows? Because he wouldn't have voted for it. But, you look at this bill. This is ostensibly a budget bill, but budget bills, by virtue of deciding where money goes and where money comes from, uh, essentially sets policy, um, or it allows for certain places to have money, certain people, certain places, and others to be deprived. And it certainly shows where a party's, where their priorities lie. It's one of the more important legislative duties of the Congress. And so you look at this, what, of course, in Trumpian language is called a big, beautiful bill. And yeah, it is. I haven't read it. I don't have the stomach for it, nor the masochistic tendency. But we know, in a nutshell, that it is a great gift to the richest Americans, the top 5% of Americans. The rest of us, not so much. And the least of us, really not. A kick in the teeth. So, I mean, right away you have a party that this is not unusual for. They take from the poor and give to the rich. And this bill, their big, beautiful bill, passed by one measly vote, slashes taxes on the wealthy and starves most agencies of the government from doing their jobs, but it gives a ton more money to the military. Because when you're positioning yourself not as a soft power, not as a benevolent power, not as a democratic leader, global leader, but rather as a bully aggressor, well, that's where your money goes, to the largest military in the world, to make it bigger. So just think of that. Those are the money is going if to the two winners are the ones that are already bloated: the military and the rich. Because when you got it, you just got to get some more. That's the American ideal. I think we're going to replace e pluribus unum with that. And to pay for this largesse, of course, come the cuts. And as I said, the cuts are pretty much to everything else, and definitely to anything that benefits people in need. So Medicaid, cut. Food assistance, literally food for children and the poor, cut. Education, cut. We were talking yesterday about Republicans like nothing more, need nothing more than an uneducated electorate. Cut all clean energy programs, environmental programs, and the upshot of the bill, and this is, you can trust the, as it's always called, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office that always looks at bills and says, well, okay, but here's what the end result is if you crunch the numbers here. And the Congressional Budget Office says that this is going to significantly increase our federal deficit, and it's going to hugely increase the number of Americans who have no health insurance. And that's what Republicans call a big, beautiful bill. But there's also something in this bill that I found out this morning that blew me away. Oh my God, they don't miss a trick. Tucked into this budget bill is a little item that would essentially prevent the federal courts to hold government officials in contempt when they violate the court's order. Yeah. Now, as we know, Trump is right now defying the order of more than one court. And I think it was yesterday that one judge flat out said, hey, this is a clear violation of the order you were given. And that judge is going to be holding, I'm not sure who, if they figure out a person, in contempt. But this bill would emasculate that judge. And we've said over and over that the only thing we got going right now to stop this destruction of our country and its ideals are the federal courts. And that they don't have an army. They don't have an enforcement arm. The only thing they can do if somebody defies them is hold them in contempt. And because of that, conceivably jail them. But the dean of the Berkeley Law School, upon seeing this little item that's stuck in there, amidst all the starving children and throwing poor Americans off health insurance, when shown this little nugget, he said, oh boy, without that power, the power of holding someone in contempt, judicial orders are meaningless because they can be ignored. Now understand, this is just for government officials cannot be held. It is again trying the one little way that Trump is still under the law as opposed to above it, thanks to the Supreme Court and its immunity ruling. But this, so what? So this judge, that judge, all these judges hold me in contempt? Big deal. Well, just so you know, that's there. Incredible. And of course, understand that this bill now goes to the Senate. So if you want, you should immediately let your senators, a lot of good that'll do you, some of you. I'm thinking of you guys who live in Ohio or in I don't know where else you're scattered all over the place. Kentucky. Lots of luck. And for those of us in Pennsylvania, who the hell knows? But yeah, I would let Fetterman know if he can find a way to vote. You know, he has not been on the floor of the Senate, as far as I know, this year. Now, that doesn't mean he has not voted. He stands in the doorway when there is a vote and votes from the hall. He will not enter because he will not wear pants and I guess a tie. I don't know if they have to have a tie. I think they do. But there's a, there's a rule that was passed when he was elected. And my memory is it was Senators Manchin and Romney who were just appalled at the slovenly appearance of this hulking senator from Pennsylvania who stood there sticking out like a sore thumb in his shorts and hoodie. And so they passed this bill. And I mean, I think the huge majority of senators voted for it. I'm not sure what the final vote was. But he, of course, took that as a personal insult. It was, geared to him. And he, as far as I know, I don't think maybe once or twice he's deigned to put on the attire that is expected. But mostly, no, he just stands there in his shorts in the doorway, and that's when he bothers to even do that. It's childish. Milton also writes, there's also a provision in the budget that removes guns. Oh, Jesus. I can't. I can't. That removes gun silencers from, the category of firearm. Therefore, removing a gun silencer from tax and regulations, making them easier to acquire and less expensive. Oh, man. Oh, man. What are the odds that the majority of Americans find that repellent? Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. So, just an item or two about the mayor's race on Tuesday. Um, oh, excuse me, breaking. The Supreme Court deadlocks, and it deadlocks. I know why it deadlocked because Amy Coney Barrett. Cannot remember her name. Um, recused herself because she is honorable from this case, uh, for as she should have. So there were only 8 justices, and it resulted in a 4-4 tie, which means that the court. Oh, whoa! So the 4-4 means that the Oklahoma State Supreme Court ruling stands. And that ruling of the Oklahoma State Supreme Court, unbelievably, was that the first public religious charter school. Now, those two words, religious charter public religious, is already creates such an explosion in my head, given our Constitution. But these are times when Christian nationalists are in power. And so there was this effort to have the taxpayers fund a Christian school. And the Oklahoma Supreme Court said no, amazingly. Actually, it was a Catholic school, controversial Catholic online academy. Okay, so that's what it was. But they deadlocked and agreed with the Oklahoma court that that's just not American, that it's unconstitutional. So, because the Supreme Court didn't overrule it, it'd be interesting. Probably she would have provided the fifth vote to overrule. That'd be my guess. But I don't know. But she honorably stepped aside. Um, I mean, I'm not. That's all I'm seeing. I'm just seeing that they're saying it's developing. It'll be updated. Yada yada yada. And I'm not even sure that I'm correct in Barrett being the one who created the 4-4 by virtue of her um, recusal. But I'm remembering that she had. So that's fast. I mean, I'm fascinated that a Supreme Court in Oklahoma uh, had that ruling. And then, wow. So it also means, what does it mean? Who's the four? We only got 3 liberals, so I think the fourth would be Roberts. And the 4 saying, "Oh, I got no problem with taxpayers funding a specific religion's school," would be Alito, Thomas, of course, and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. That's my guess. Wow. Wow. Okay. So there's that. But I was about to say something about the mayor's race. So, a little more information out about it, and where the votes were and where they were changed and what did it. And first of all, I just want to say that it's only a little more than 3,000 votes. And in a city of over 300,000 people, that's not but it is when nobody votes. And I'm just blown away by the fact that most Pittsburghers didn't vote. And I mean most. Turnout for who would be the mayor was 26%. That's who voted. 1/4. So 3/4 of effing Pittsburgh voters said, yeah. But I bet in those 3/4 of they're bitching, they're moaning, who's picking up my this? How is that happening? I'm, upset about I am so sick of my fellow Americans' disinterest, self-centered, willful ignorance. You can't have a democracy with that level of disinterest. We, the people, there's no king. We, the people, are in charge. Well, how can you be in charge if you don't even vote? Bastards. I cannot describe how angry I am. And do you know that that 26% was up from the last mayoral election, primary election? It was up. The one that threw Peduto out. There weren't even 26% that pulled that one off. So for everybody who was upset about that, will you blame all the people who thought Peduto was just fine, who couldn't bother to vote? And the same goes for the Gainey voters, non-voters. Because in fact, if you look at the wards that went for Gainey, a lot of his obvious votes didn't show up. So we can blame it on, well, racism. But the reality is that if Black voters had bothered, Gainey might still be mayor. I mean, I know I'm pretending there's not a general election, but you know what I mean. Wow. 26%. Well. And the people who put O'Connor over the top turn out to be my neighbors. That's who did it. Because while there was depressed turnout in Gainey's strongholds, there was a big uptick in turnout in the 14th ward, the East End big ward where I live, and the one that is very politically motivated and, good citizens who use their franchise more than most. The 14th ward, where O'Connor surged, accounted for 41% of the increase over, I'm not sure. I'm reading that out of a sentence, whatever. But yeah. Okay, I'm just saying, I don't want to hear any losers. It's always get out the vote. It is always get out the vote. And as you know, I was not thrilled with either. So it's not like I'm sitting here squawking and screaming. I feel the same way I would if Gainey had won. This is just, you can't have a democracy if you don't have a serious citizenry. And we don't. Damn it. Damn. 26%. Unbelievable. Okay. I mean, I don't know. I have never missed voting in an election since I first voted, and I'm so old that I couldn't vote until I was 21. So for over 50 years, I haven't missed an election. Primary, general, it don't matter. I vote. Now, why? I vote because it was modeled in my home. Don't people do that? Isn't that just like good parenting? I mean, my kid, who is so disenchanted with American politics, like most of us, but more so his generation, I don't think he's ever missed voting. I took him to vote with me since he was a babe in arms. God, unbelievable. Sickening. So, you know what you wouldn't want to be these days? You wouldn't want to be the president of a country who gets invited to the Oval Office. Can you imagine? I mean, I did not watch. I couldn't. I learned my lesson with the Zelensky visit. I did not watch the poor president of South Africa's visit uh, to the Oval Office. With, I see the picture. I'm looking at a picture right now, and there's Trump sitting, like, as Susan always says, looking like he's taking a dump. Um, and I read about what happened, and it's so mind blowing and embarrassing. I'm so embarrassed. So he subjected this president to a litany of falsehoods. He was lecturing the South African president about what was going on in his own country. And what he was telling him was a pack of lies, BS, crap, which is what he did to Zelensky. And when Zelensky said, but I'm, tried to argue with him, that's when all hell broke loose. This guy, knowing you don't argue, was finessing it, was holding. How the hell he held his temper, I do not know. He said things like, I'm looking at a quote, we have a multi party democracy that allows people to express themselves. We were taught by Mandela that when there are problems, people need to sit and listen and speak to one another. He kept trying to, so he didn't get combative like Zelensky understandably did. And anybody who did try to apparently correct Trump's bullshit were not treated well. Here's one line I read. By the end, with the stunned South African president looking on, this is after he made him watch a video of bullshit that he mischaracterized. By the end, with the stunned South African president looking on, Mr. Trump began flipping through a stack of papers, apparently showing white victims of violence in South Africa. Death, 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 said Trump. And the South African president kept saying, trying to say, we have a crime problem. It hits, I'm sure it hits black people there much more so, because there's many, 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 many more of them. But no dead black bodies were in that sheaf that our brilliant president was going through. Jesus H. And do you know the one great line that the South African president got in? He said to Trump, I am sorry, I don't have a plane to give you. And Trump said, I wish you did. I'd take it. I would take it. I mean, how do we not just bury our heads? Okay, now what I'm going to do, which I often do, I guess, on Thursdays, is just share with you a bunch of other stuff I happen to have here in no particular order. Hang on. Got it. Okay. Just um, I want to note that two people leaving a Jewish museum in D.C. last night were gunned down. A young man and a young woman, a couple who, in fact, were due to be engaged. He had the ring, he just hadn't asked her. And she's an American. He's an Israeli, both had jobs at the Israeli embassy. It is clearly they were chosen because they are Jews and because the killer um, made that clear. Well, he said free Palestine, which I guess means you kill Jews. That said, I want to share a quote from a former Israeli general. Actually, he was a very high up Israeli general. I think he head the Israeli defense. Hang on, why can't I find it? I'll get it here. Former top general in the Israeli in the IDF. Uh, he said this. His name is Yair Golan. He is a huge voice against Netanyahu and his government. And he said Israel is on the way to becoming a pariah state. Now, I would argue that his verb tense is incorrect. It's not on the way, it has become and has been for some time. It must return to behaving like a sane country. And a sane country doesn't engage in fighting against civilians, doesn't kill babies, and doesn't set the expulsion of an entire population as a goal. Okay, I want to make clear here, and this is where things always get so sticky. I I think the vast majority of American Jews would agree with that. And the vast majority of American Jews care mightily about Israel. And we hate Netanyahu. My contempt for him is as great as my contempt for Trump. They are peas in a pod, narcissistic crooks who sit atop their nations and treat them like they own them. And they both acquired enough power within their governments to retain their power. Although I've never understood it, because it seems to me that because at least Israel has a parliamentary system, that they got a better shot at being able to dislodge this guy. But they, like America, are a divided nation, and divided in the same way between a lot of people to whom hate and aggression come very, very easily, and those who want to return to sanity. But equating Jews with Israel and then gunning Jews down, that's anti-Semitism. It is not anti-Semitism to feel like I do, the rage, anger, hate I have for the Israeli government. But I have love for that country. And people who don't understand that, well, so it is really unfortunate, because this is not going to, again, this is going to cause trouble for the Jews, because Trump, I'm sure, and Bondi and that whole friggin' crowd are going to take these two dead Jews and run with it and help them, again, go after people who have different opinions about Israel. This president pals around with friggin' Nazis, Elon Musk and all the others, people who like do salutes. He has dinner with them. And you're telling me that he cares about Jews? Jeez, God. And the Jews who fall for it, unbelievable. And they are a minority of a minority. But don't ask for, critical thinking from the Jew hater side, which is growing by the minute. Milton looked up Yair Golan. He served as the Deputy Minister of the Economy in the 36th Israeli government, served as a member of the Knesset, the parliament, up until 2022. And as I said, as a top general. There are so many, there are so many members, you have to serve in the military there, that they are just sick. And so many Israelis just sick. But wow, you can't get that. And it's all those right-wing religious nutcases. They're Christian in this country. In Israel, they're Jews. Okay, here's another thing I've been wanting to say. Our definition of homeless is bull. We don't have a clue how many Americans are homeless, but they're growing by the minute. It's why, the issue of affordable homes was such a big issue in this mayoral race. And Pittsburgh is one of the more affordable cities in the country. And yet, affordable housing here. Can you imagine what it is almost anywhere else? Americans working 2 jobs often are homeless. This is a huge problem that's not being dealt with at all that I can see. All we do is deal poorly with the result, which are people living on streets, in cars, under bridges. And so many people just love to just dismiss them all as, well, they're mentally ill. They're mentally ill, they're on drugs, they're alcoholics. That's a good way to dismiss it. And then you see liberals like the California governor Newsom. Now he's going after them and saying, we're cleaning them up, getting all these homeless in camp. Where are they supposed to go? In Atlanta, between 2010 and 2023, okay? That's a 13-year period. The median rent went up by 76%. And you know what that meant? People were forced out of their apartments, forced down in terms of what they could have, and those who were forced down were often also forced out, down and out. And that was the result of the economic success of Atlanta and the gentrification of so many of its neighborhoods. The kind of thing that, like a lot of people who supported O'Connor, tout, while Gainey was talking about the people who get pushed down and out. It's why I can't deal with any of it anymore. Politicians, media, define homelessness so narrowly. They count the people who have to live in shelters or who are living on the streets or under the bridges. But people who study homelessness say that a true measure of homelessness in America would be as much as 6 times the official figure. Easily more than 4 million Americans probably do not have shelter. And one thing I saw that I just thought this so blows my mind. Again, because of how we think. In this country, we think of housing ultimately as a commodity. Yeah? How is it any it's bought, it's sold. Yes, you can rent it. If you don't pay your rent, it can be taken from you. It's a commodity. And the people who own housing invariably profit at the expense of the many who need it, who pay unbelievable percentages of their income to it, and in some cases just can't anymore. There was a story that I read about the people who work in Colorado, in the ski district area of Colorado, who cannot afford to live there because these ski areas cater to the rich. But the rich expect to be waited on, right? And served. It's the same as like those, you go out to like, Martha's Vineyard or the Cape, all those places where the rich go. And there are these, all these people who serve them, care for them, but can't afford to live there. Now, in the case of the Colorado ski areas, what they do is they live in their cars. And there are so many of them that one town, the town of Frisco, which is 30 minutes from Vail and closer to a bunch of other big ski places, has a program where if they can show that they are getting a paycheck from servicing the ski people, that means they're contributing to the local economy, and so they can park their car that they're sleeping in and living in specific parking lots. So where they'll then put a portage on. Okay? And there are people living in it, ski instructors, snowplow drivers, ski lift operators, ice fishing guides, dog sledding guides, a woman who works at a ski resort whose job, she scans the ski passes, 2 nurses who live in the ER. Who work in the ER. They're living in their cars in the parking lot, a cashier at the drugstore, servers at the restaurant, a woman who fits people for their boots. She earns $24 an hour and cannot afford a place to live. She lives in her car. She's making more than Colorado's minimum wage of $14.81 an hour. She is earning $2,874 a month, but it is not enough to afford any place to live. She lives in her car. The median price of a house in that area is $1 million. And by the way, the people in their cars in these parking lots with the portage on, they pay $75 a month to the city to be able to park their car. Those are homeless people. Jesus H. Christ. Um, I'm sorry. And I still didn't get to this thing I want to get to about the AI in the newspaper. Damn, Jonathan, you'll forgive me, because you're the one who turned me on to that ridiculous story about how the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Chicago Sun-Times, in their print edition, put out this huge, like 50-page insert that was all about like what people could do in the summer, what books they could read, and it had all kinds of books and quotes from the authors and all this stuff. And someone started looking at it, and it turns out a whole ton of the books didn't exist. The quotes were made up, and it was all, turns out, the guy who supposedly put it together, who, by the way, is an employee of Hearst, which is, I get a pension check from Hearst, because Hearst is a newspaper provider as well as owning television stations and other stuff. Hearst employed this guy So the Inquirer and the Sun-Times think, well, this is stuff coming from Hearst, must be legit. They didn't look into it. And out goes this absolute chat GPT bullshit. Bullshit. Artificial intelligence. Oh man, I meant to do a lot more with that, but we're out of time. Okay, guys, so I'm not going to be here on Monday. It's Memorial Day. You might want to say a little prayer, not only for those who have served our country, but for our country, because like many of those who served, uh, it's dying.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.